Hey everyone, welcome to Green Sprout Living. I am Nikki and today I'm going to be taking you along and canning some carrots. So I had my girls harvest all of my carrots out of the garden today that I planted in mid-April. It is now June and it takes about 60 days or so for carrots to usually get ready to harvest. We did have a really hot spell, and carrots are really known to go to seed quickly whenever it gets up into the 90s and beyond. I did have some carrots that went to seed that I had planted in the fall last year, and they actually overwintered. So I knew it was going to be time when those temperatures got really hot that I needed to get my carrots harvested, even if they weren't as big as what I'd like them to be. I have washed all of them. Let's get to the first step of getting these carrots canned up. Okay guys, so the first thing that I had to do is I had to wash them off really good, and then we cut the tops of them off. Now, you can probably get by with not skinning the outside, but everywhere I've read it says that it can lead to bitter carrots. So I would rather take the little bit of time it takes to peel the carrots, and that way I don't ruin the flavor of my canned carrots. I just take a regular shredder and then I just do like you normally would and take the outer skin off of it. I don't have a ton, but that's okay. I am going to replant in the fall. So I do have a lot of carrots that are rather small. My daughters kept this one. I'm not going to keep this one, but I do have some that are really small, which is okay. This would be considered a baby carrot. This is probably because of my planting. I planted them rather close together and I never did get time to go out there and thin them out. So I do have some that are on the bigger side. Either way, this is going to be enough for us to at least put a few cans of carrots back. I do use carrots in a lot of my like cheese sauce recipes. That's one of my favorite ways to use my cooked carrots. And I do have another recipe or two that I do use canned carrots in. My family is not a fan of cooked carrots, so they would rather have raw carrots. So I don't really need a whole lot of canned carrots, but I'm gonna try to can as many as I can, and I'll probably plant a lot more in the fall. I feel like it will do better because I won't have to worry about it getting so hot like it did this spring. So I'm gonna start getting these peeled up, and then we are going to chop them into coins, and then I'm going to start filling my jars. So real quick, I wanted to show you a little bit about carrots. So do you see these little root hairs that are on the side? Basically what these are little root hairs that are trying to find water. So to prevent a lot of these, you can make sure whenever you are watering, you're watering deeply, so that way whenever the carrot grows, it will grow longer instead of searching out for water. Another problem that I have fallen into when I am growing carrots is finding crazy carrots like this. So basically this is a product of planting too close together, and they are searching for space. So it doesn't mean that these carrots are bad or anything. They are a little bit harder to clean, of course, but I'm just going to break this up, clean it off the best I can, and then we're going to eat it. So there's nothing wrong with this. Ugly fruit is not bad. It's just, oh, there, see, I just broke it. And now you have two carrots. It shouldn't be discarded. You can still eat it. It's just not as pretty as your perfectly carrot that you get from the grocery store. And I think that's the problem, is we have this idea of food is supposed to be perfect. And when you start growing your own food, it kind of scares you because, well, fruits and vegetables are not always grown perfectly. So especially whenever you're trying to do things organically. So just because you have ugly veggies, it doesn't mean you can't eat them. So I did get all of these peeled up. I do have some that are way too small, but my dog loves carrots, so this to him is like the best treat. So I'm gonna save some of these for him. The only other thing that I want to show you is I had my daughters cut the greens off. I would suggest leaving a little bit so whenever you are peeling the carrot, you have something to hold on to. I have one of these peelers, but I have found the easiest way to do this is to just go back and forth, and it peels it really quickly and you're done. It's a little bit time consuming, but you know, I think it's worth it. When you're growing your own food, it does take a little bit longer. And yes, you can go to the store and get carrots for, I don't know, 80 cents a can or something like that. But it makes it taste so much better whenever you've grown it yourself. So can your carrots. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these all cut up and get my jars ready and get my pressure canner on the stove and getting it warmed up. So let's go. Okay, so I have all of my jars cleaned up. I actually have quite a bit more carrots than what I figured I was going to have, which is amazing. And there's all kinds of different recipes that you can go by. I am very simple. I like to add my seasonings and everything after, so I just go by the basic raw pack. The instructions just say to pack your carrots into your jar tightly, and then I fill the jar to 1 inch headspace with hot water. I usually there is a tool that you can get that comes along with like one of these kits. However, mine is super old. I just use like a chopstick or a butter knife or something just to get the air bubbles out so that way they can fit in there more compact. So I'm gonna go ahead and start filling these jars full. Now, I did rinse off these carrots once I cut them up. So I'm just gonna push them in really, really tight as I can get them in there. I'm gonna have quite a bit more than I thought. Gonna have to get some more jars. And you can season these. You can add spices, you can add salt, you can do whatever you want to, but like I say, I just like to just basically cook them and have cooked carrots, so that way whenever I go to use it for whatever recipe, it's kind of more versatile. I'm going to get some more jars cleaned up and then do the next step. So I will be right back. Okay, so I got all of my other jars full. I ended up getting 14 pints. This is amazing. I had no idea I was going to get this much. Now that we have all of the jars packed, I don't add anything. I add no salt or anything. And then you just want to fill up to 1 inch headspace, and I always stop right at the fatter part of the lip, and that's usually pretty close to 1 inch headspace. Then you'll take your stick or your tool that you get in your canning kit, and then you just go around the edges and try to get all of the bubbles out, all of the air pockets, and it actually kind of pushes the carrots or down in there a little bit farther. So once you get all of the air bubbles out, you want to wipe your rim. People will just use water. Sometimes if it's sticky, like anything like with jelly or anything like that, I use a little bit of vinegar, but with this I just want it to be dry, and that should be fine. Just so that way you'll get a good seal. You put your canning jar or your canning lid on, and then you take your ring and then you just screw it on until it's finger tight there. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna get air bubbles out of all of these jars, get them in the canner, and they process for 25 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure. Now you do need to check your guidelines in your area depending on your altitude and things like that. But in my area, it's 11 pounds of pressure for 25 minutes. And I believe it's 30 minutes for quarts. So I always just make sure you follow, if you're a little bit unsure, just make sure you follow the guidelines either in your canning books, or you can go to the National Canning website. I honestly, my favorite tool is the book that come with my canner. It is super simple. There's not any fancy dancy recipes. It's just basic canning. And I find it's the one that I go to all the time. And I still refer back to it. I can't remember the times of everything that I can. So if you can, that's wonderful. I just have a short-term memory. All right, so let's get these in the canner. So if you don't know, I'm sure you do if you've been canning for any certain amount of time, but for the beginners, when you get your pesto canner or when you get your canner at all, you're gonna have a little trivet, I guess is what they would call these things. This has to be on the bottom. You put your canning jars directly into the canner without this because it will get your jars too hot and they will 100% burst. So mine is a two level. Put, I believe, 16 pints in my canner, so I will be able to put the 8 down on the bottom, and then I'll sit this right on top of those 8, and then I'll put the rest on the top. And the other reason that I am heating my water up like this is because I have already heated up the water in my canner. So I want to make sure that the water that is inside of my jars are hot, because you don't want cold water in there, because cold and heat together can burst your jar. So you want to make sure that the water is hot. Okay, so I'm probably going to have some people say I did not check the headspace. The other tool that comes along with these actually has a measuring. I wish I knew where that was. I don't know where it's at. But I will 100% be honest with you. When they say there is a 1-inch headspace, I always go to the bottom ring. And it's worked for me. I guess I should put a disclaimer right here. You should 100% follow all the guidelines when it comes to canning, because it is your food. Wipe off the rims, put on your lids, put on your rings, put them in the canner, and get to canning. Now there's other methods that you can use too. You can do the hot pack method, where you boil them first and then you pack them where they're pretty well cooked into the jar. But I find that the raw pack is easier. I pretty well try to raw pack everything just because I feel like it saves me a little time. And some people may say it tastes better the other way, but this works just fine with me. All right, so I have my jars in the canner. The water should be warm. I got it to a boil first, but I'm just gonna warm it back up, and then I'm gonna put the lid on, and then I'm gonna let it steam for about 10 minutes. So then I'm going to put the weight on, and then I'm going to set my timer once it gets up to 11 pounds of pressure. Right now I'm just waiting for the water to get warmed up. I can kind of tell by the sound of it if the water is warmed up. So we're just gonna let it start cooking. Okay guys, so I am back. It is starting to vent out. You definitely want to make sure this vents for at least 10 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer for 10 minutes. And the reason that you want it to vent out is because there's air locked in your canner, and you need to get all of that air out so that way it doesn't mess up the processing temperature, because you can get under processed food if all of that air is not vented out, because it can't get up to the proper temperature. So make sure that 100% vents for 10 minutes. Okay, when that gets vented and my timer goes off, I'm going to put the weight on top of where it is venting. So that's my next step. Okay, so it's been in 10 minutes. I went ahead and put the weight on. Now I just have to watch my gauge and see when it gets to the 11. And then once it gets to 11, that's when I start my 25 minutes of processing times. After your 25 minutes, do not take the weight off. You need to let it cool down and release its pressure naturally. So I'm gonna let it release, and then once it's to 0, I'll take the lid off, and then we will take the canning jars out of the canner. You never wanna leave your canner full overnight. It would be nice to be able to just leave it in there, but it's not good to do that because it can harbor bacteria. And it is almost up to pressure already, so I am going to watch it, and then I'm going to adjust the heat accordingly. Keep it at 11 pounds of pressure. So Okay guys, that is all for today. I have 14 pints of carrots canned, and hopefully I'll be able to get 14 more this fall, or maybe even more. So I hope that you like this video. I hope that you learned something and that I inspired you somehow to maybe start growing your own food and maybe even preserving a little bit. So if you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave me a comment on any other videos that you'd like me to put out from here on out. So, all right, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.